Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the college football pregame show. Today is Big 12 week. I got to tell you, as much as for whatever reason Brett Yormark hates Memphis, I love the Big 12 conference. It is so fun to watch every year. And we're going to get right into our preview. Timestamp should be showing if you want to skip the preview and rankings and go straight to the picks. With that, we're going to start right all the way down at the bottom with number 16, the Baylor Bears. Baylor has not been good in a while since they won the conference in 2022. DJ Lagway is the incoming quarterback transfer, who that might be a familiar name for most of you and not a name that you want to hear again if you're a Florida fan. He threw for 2,200 yards last year for 16 touchdowns and a whopping 14 interceptions. However, the former five-star still clearly has some potential. So I'm not going to count him out just yet. Maybe he'll be able to do something at Baylor, but I'm not going to be super confident. Then it's pretty much an inexperienced offense overall, not a lot of really proven players. On the defense, I'm especially concerned with the weak linebacker room and secondary. At the helm is Christopher Jackson impersonator, head coach Dave Aranda. He has had one really good season, but it's been pretty inconsistent and mostly rough under him since he took over in 2021. Therefore, with all that said, I'm ranking Baylor all the way at the bottom, number 16. Number 15, the West Virginia Mountaineers. They got Scotty Fox. He's starting quarterback. He started a couple games last year despite not even being the second string because of so many injuries. He did get to start a couple games toward the end of the season. We got Cam Cook at running back, who rushed for 1,600 yards last year at Jacksonville State. There isn't a lot of depth at wide receiver, which is definitely a concern for me. On the defense, I really want to look at Ezekiel Durham Campbell, who got 6 sacks last year at Coastal Carolina. Overall, really good stats. This shouldn't be a great Rich Rodriguez team, though, because that's all the good things I have to write down about them. They're not terrible. Again, the Big 12 tends to have a high floor. Occasionally, there's the off year when Oklahoma State goes 1-11, but overall, it's a pretty solid conference. Always very competitive, and nobody's really out this year. I think every team has a decent shot at making a bowl game at the least, West Virginia included. Number 14, we have the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas is, of course, a basketball school, so I don't think this ranking will surprise anyone. But generally, they've been a little better than this. They're going to have Chase Jenkins, who was a rotation quarterback for Rice last season, starting. That's pretty worrisome. Nick McMillan, the wide receiver, received 975 yards last year at Buffalo. He's going to be their standout guy, go-to option in the pass game. My biggest worry is the secondary. I don't think it's very good, and without any real defensive stars to balance it out, I don't think it's going to be a great defensive season this year from Kansas, just because they're going to get passed all over, I think. Lance Leopold somewhat revived the program when he took over, but now they've gone 5-7 in back-to-back seasons, and he might be getting on a little bit of a hot seat. I don't think this year is going to be terrible, but it has the potential to be, which is always just a huge concern if you're a hot seat coach, especially. Therefore, I'm ranking them number 14. At number 13, we've got the UCF Knights. They've got Alonzo Barrett, who was the James Madison transfer. When I saw that he was going to be the quarterback, I was initially really excited, but looking at his stats, he threw for 2,800 yards, 23 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. But his completion percentage is only 58%. That is not good. They've got Landon Chambers, who rushed for 1,200 yards last year at the FCS level. So it's an intriguing prospect, but he may not reach the heights that UCF wants him to. Similarly, you've got Josh Derry, wide receiver, 1,100 yards at the FCS level again. Another FCS prospect transfer, who might be really good, has the potential to be really good, but he's not proven yet. So I'm not going to put all my faith in UCF just yet. Then there is On the defensive end, I want to look at Lewis Carter, the linebacker, 95 tackles for him last season, very good. And Scott Frost is the head coach. He's in year 2 now. I'm really not sold on him as the head coach yet. It was not a great year last year. He could prove me wrong. He absolutely could. But I'm just not confident. I don't think it's going to be great. So UCF I'm ranking all the way down at number 13. Now at number 12, I have a bit of an interesting pick, and that's the Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State was wrecked last offseason, with Matt Campbell's departure to Penn State. Most of the coaches went with him, most of the team went with him, and this is a program in shambles. They hire Jimmy Rogers after 1 year of Washington State, 1 year of him coaching at Washington State. Then they bring in quarterback transfer Jalen Rayner, 3,300 yards last year, 19 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. A little bit concerning, but not terrible. And 66% completion percentage, which is pretty good overall. I think he has the potential to be really good at Iowa State. Then there's a bit of a weak rush game. That's going to be a problem. That's a bit of a hole in the offense. We've got Cody Jackson, who received 800 yards last year at the FCS. He could end up being really good. If not, you've also got Omari Hayes, who received for 500 yards at Tulane. My issue is that's it. Those are their only proven wide receiver options. 2 people is not enough to throw to for an entire season, especially because one of them hasn't played FBS football, started FBS football before. So that is a big problem. It's the defense that I'm actually a little bit higher on. It's Isaac Terrell, who had 7 sacks last season at Washington State, came with Jimmy Rogers. And here's the stat. There are no defenders with more than 55 tackles, which means that they definitely don't have any standout players on the defense. But at the same time, I think they have some depth. So they should at least be able to muster a mediocre performance. That said, that's their floor I'm talking about. I think there is an off chance that a lot of these players really step up. I mean, I think it's more likely that they have a breakout year than some of these other teams. Like, I am not as down on Iowa State as a lot of other people. I know several other college football creators who have ranked them towards the bottom or at the bottom of their Big 12 rankings. I'm just feeling a better season than that from the Cyclones. I might be wrong, but I don't think they're out for this year. I think they do still have some potential to make some noise. They're very volatile. They're very volatile. Number 11, I've got the Arizona Wildcats, who have Noah Fafita, the returning quarterback, threw for 3,200 yards last season, 29 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, very good. The rest of the offense is kind of average. On the defensive side of the ball, you have Tay Brown, 93 tackles as a linebacker. He was very good last season. Brent Brennan rebounded quite nicely last season, I thought, after a pretty bad year 1. And the program is now doing pretty good. I'm kind of high on Arizona. I think they can really contend. Now, number 10, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati has incoming transfer J.C. French playing quarterback. He's had a great career at Georgia Southern, and now he's moved up to the Power 4 level after, I believe, 2 or 3 seasons as their starting quarterback. They also have Zylan Perry, who is an intriguing running back transfer from Louisiana Lafayette. I am not completely sold on him, but I do think he has the potential to be one of the best in the conference. They also have 2 FCS wide receivers who are very exciting. They have Malachi Henry and Lorenzo Fenner. And if neither of them really do well, there's also the safe option of Cade Wolford from Kent State. He was quite good last season. So I think they do have a lot of options. I think they're going to have a great pass game this upcoming season. I will say, Scott Satterfield, it took him a minute, but he has really brought Cincinnati to the Power Conference level as a head coach. It took them a couple rough seasons. They had some growing pains at the start. It was not a fun couple years for the Bearcats, but they've really picked it up. They just made their first bowl game as a Big 12 team last year, and they have really started. And I could see them being a contender in this conference very soon. All right, now number 9, the TCU Horned Frogs. They've got incoming quarterback transfer, Jaden Craig, who threw for 2,800 yards last year, 25 touchdowns to 7 interceptions at Harvard. Not at the FBS level, it was at Harvard. At least he's definitely very smart, got a lot of football intelligence considering he made it into Harvard. So there's always that. He's got a good floor, he's got good fundamentals to work with. So I don't think he'll be terrible, Harvard joke aside. I really do think he should at least be one of the more average quarterbacks in the conference. I just don't see him being a big star like Josh Hoover was. And they also have Jeremy Payne, great running back. Jeremy Payne, good running back. He's not bad, but great, maybe a bit of an exaggeration. Sorry, Jeremy. No linebackers with more than 40 tackles. That is a bit of a concern. However, it's made up for by the safety room. You got Jamel Johnson with 96 tackles and Jacob Fields with 90, although it was at Louisiana Tech last season. Very good on the defensive side of the ball. Sonny Dykes took TCU to the college football playoff, the 4-team playoff in 2022, and has gone back-to-back 9-4 seasons. So I don't think you can argue against the fact that he's one of the better coaches in college football just from a consistency standpoint, despite one bad 5-7 year. But that's because they just made the playoffs, and all of the players that they had got drafted or went straight to the pros. So yeah, TCU, I'm having it at number 9. I think these top 9 teams, there is a difference between them and 10 to 16. These are the teams that honestly do have a real shot. Now, number 8, the Colorado Buffaloes under Coach Prime have been very up and down, to say the least. They weren't very good last year. However, looking at this roster, they do have sophomore Julian Lewis, who is going to start at quarterback. He did start a game or two last season, and as a true freshman, he threw 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Not a ton of experience, but at least he managed to go a couple games without throwing an interception. You've also got also got Danny Scudero and Cam Perry, a pair of great G6 wide receivers last season. Also, they've got DeAndre Moore from Texas transferring in, so I think they will have a really good pass game if Julian Lewis steps up. I also really like the defensive line of Colorado. They've got 2 defensive tackles with 5 sacks last season. They also have linebacker Gideon Lamprin transferring in for Bowling Green, recorded 119 tackles last year. I think he might have been Coach Sanders' best portal grab this season. Overall, Coach Prime is in year 4, and he has new coordinators. So this might really be the season if we see whether or not he is a great college football coach, because he's got the roster, he has the horses, he's got new coordinators. Probably, at least you can't say he's being held back. And honestly, it's a pretty wide open conference as usual. Texas Tech once again has the upper hand, but not by much. I could really see anybody coming in and taking the number 1 spot this season. This is when we see if Coach Prime is really good. And honestly, there's a pretty good chance I think he is going to be. But I can't say for sure, so I'm going to rank them at number 8. Now, number 7, the Kansas State Wildcats. K-State was hit by what can only be called the Dublin curse. The team that is lost in Dublin the last 2 seasons of it happening. Florida State lost to Georgia Tech on a last-second field goal. We know what happened to Florida State. Then Kansas State lost to Iowa State last season. They turned around and lost to Army, who was hot off a loss to Tarleton State, an FCS program. And Kansas State, they fared better than Florida State, but they had a disappointing season last year. So they're coming off of that, and this year they don't play in Dublin. So Avery Johnson is the quarterback. He threw for 2,300 yards last year, had a 3-1 touchdown to interception. I also really like Joe Jackson at running back, rushed for 900 yards last year. He's really good. You've also got Garrett Oakley, 389 receiving yard, tight end. That's a lot of yards for a tight end. I think he's one of the best in the country. You also have Elijah Hill, defensive end, had 9 sacks last year with Kennesaw State, a really good transfer portal grab. I am a bit concerned with the linebackers and corners. I'm not very sure about them. It could be more inexperience than lack of talent, but those two positions are a bit of a concern for me. Colin Klein is the new head coach after Chris Kleiman retired at the end of last season. I think that's a pretty solid hire. Maybe didn't really blow me away, but it's good to see some kind of consistency is what you can expect from that. And I think Kansas State will take that and do pretty well this season, so I'm ranking them number 7. Now at number 6, the Utah Utes. Now, Utah has Devon Dampier at quarterback, for 2,400 yards last year, 24 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions, just 5, which is pretty good. Wayshawn Parker rushed for 981 yards last year, very good. They got pretty good. They got a good receiver room. The defense is kind of average. I'm not too high on it, but at least it's not bad. There's no real gaping holes that I see. And Morgan Scaley takes over for Kyle Whittingham after he takes the Michigan job as the new head coach of Michigan. We'll talk about that in the Big Ten video. And I'm expecting good things from Utah this year. These top 6 especially, I think all have a reasonable chance at reaching, if not winning, the conference championship. And Utah definitely makes it into that field. At number 5, we've got the Houston Cougars with Connor Wegman at quarterback, who threw for 2,700 yards last year, 25 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He's very good. I think he might be one of the best in the conference. They also have Amare Thomas and Trent Walker at receiver, who got 966 and 823 yards respectively. They also have Patrick Overmeyer at tight end, 344 receiving yards at UTSA last season. The defense is the concern for me. The offense is great. The rush game is pretty all right. They've got a really bad D-line, pretty weak linebackers and corners. The safeties are all right because of one player, and that's Kentrell Webb. I think he brings the average up. I believe he got 71 tackles last year, but I didn't write it down, so that might not be true. And all of us under head coach Willie Fritz, who is one of the better coaches in college football, just generally able to improve programs over time. He's gotten Houston up to be one of the top football programs in the conference. They haven't really looked at playoff contention just yet, but they look pretty good. Now, number 4. Ready? Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Oklahoma State Cowboys. You heard me right. They just went 1-11 last year, and I distinctly remember that other college football creator C.F. Budge was glazing the heck out of them, was getting made fun of in his comments for it, and I was kind of thinking, Oklahoma State? No, that's not happening. And then I look at this roster. Budge, if you're watching this, you were right, my friend. You were right. My goodness. Let me talk about this offense for a second. Ready? Quarterback, Drew Mestemaker. 69% completion percentage, 4.3 thousand yards last year, 34 touchdowns, which is not very far behind Fernando Mendoza last season. Running back, Caleb Hawkins, 1,400 yards, 24 touchdowns. Wide receiver, Wyatt Young, 1,200 yards last year, receiving. On the defensive side, Ethan Wisloki, 113 tackles as a linebacker, all following head coach Eric Morris, who is from North Texas. While those stats may not be as impressive at North Texas, you can't sneeze at 4,300 passing yards at the Division I level under any circumstances. Eric Morris really made North Texas a better program in his time there. Really, the only concern I have that is genuinely bad is the secondary, and it's more inexperience than lack of talent. Like, I don't think there's any proven players in the secondary, rather than there's no good players. Oklahoma State, again, of the top 6, I'm actually the least confident in them to win the conference, but they are going to be good this season. They're a good football team. They have bounced back, and they're going to contend. Now, number 3, BYU. BYU has quarterback Bear Bachmeier, threw for 3,000 yards last year. They've also got running back L.J. Martin, who I think is very underrated. Rushed for 1,300 yards last year, 12 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per carry. Now, the problem with them is the wide receivers. I know everybody loves the excellent, unique naming pair of Bear and Tiger Bachmeier. Tiger's the best receiver they got. He got 59 yards receiving last year and more fumbles than touchdowns. The wide receiver room is, frankly, a joke. Sorry. If they can just establish a run game, then they will be fine. It's a big concern. But I still rank them at number 3 because the D-line is pretty mediocre. There's none with 4 sacks last season. However, you've got Cade Uluave with 97 tackles, as well as 12 tackles for loss last year's linebacker. And, of course, all this under head coach Kilani Sitake, who has been the coach since 2016, has back-to-back 10-win seasons. And, frankly, bad receivers, bad D-line, no nothing. Kilani Sitake is going to win football games this year. There are few coaches I trust more than Kilani Sitake to win no matter the roster. And frankly, it's not a bad roster. It's just a roster with some gaping holes. And I'm gonna trust Coach Sitake to figure something out. Maybe establish a run game. Maybe some of these receivers just need a chance to prove themselves. I don't know. But they're going to figure something out, and they could absolutely win the conference this year just because of that man. Now, number 2 is the Arizona State Sun Devils. Now, they've got incoming transfer Cutter Boley at quarterback. Came in from Kentucky, threw for only 2,100 yards last year. My main concern with him is 15 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. That's 5-4. That's not a good touchdown-interception ratio. However, I don't think it matters when you've got Marquise Gillis rushing the ball for 1,100 yards last year at the FCS level. But I watched film from this guy. That seems like more talent than lack of talent on the defense, just watching him play. I can tell you that he might not be a huge star. He's no joke. You've also got Reed Harris, wide receiver, 673 receiving yards last year at Boston College. You've got Omarion Miller, 800 receiving yards last year at Colorado. And on the defensive side of the ball, you got Owen Long, linebacker from Colorado State. He recorded no less than 148 tackles last year. This man is a beast. I mean, just him being on the defense makes it exponentially better. And all of this under Kenny Dillingham, who is one of the best young coaches in college football. He goes into year 4 with the Sun Devils. He's already taken them to a playoff game and a conference championship. And with this roster, I don't doubt that he can repeat. But in his way is number 1, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Texas Tech has had a bit of a situation going on in the late offseason. Brendan Sorsby, I'm sure you've heard about it, but I'll recap for you. Brendan Sorsby, the incoming quarterback transfer from Cincinnati, as it turns out, previously, during his freshman year, had placed a lot of illegal micro bets, including those on his own football team, even though he never got on the field, and was ruled ineligible. And he, by Texas Tech, by the way, after a whole debacle of threats from the Big 12 and arguments and all, it was a mess. And by the way, if you're wondering, Brendan Sorsby applied for a supplemental draft, and you can go Google what that is, and did not get it. So you can go catch him in the Canadian Football League next season. That's where he's going to be. Let's see, but I don't think they need Sorsby. Looking at the roster, they have Will Hammond, who's back up last year for Texas Tech. Threw for 668 yards, not at all bad. They've got Cameron Dickey, 1,100 rushing yards last year. I'm a big concern with his ball security. 5 fumbles. Not great. But the receiver room is just so stacked. The defense is solid. And all of this under head coach Joey McGuire, who's been really good for Texas Tech. Again, he just took them to the most dominant season they've had in a very long time. Also, they changed their logo. I'm not going to use the new one for graphics because it looks bad. Sorry, I'm not sure why they made that decision. All this to say, I'm ranking Texas Tech number 1. With that said, let's see if they end up being number 1. After playing some games, let's get into the picks section of the video. Starting in week 0, TCU is going to throttle North Carolina. And I forgot to mention this in my ACC video, but the Dublin curse, as I've talked about in this video already, is going to apply to North Carolina, and they're going 1-11. Is my official prediction for them. Then week 1, they play Colorado plays at Georgia Tech. I picked Georgia Tech to win this one. Pretty confidently. I'm not as confident anymore. Colorado is a lot better than I thought they were, but I think I'm still gonna go with Georgia Tech just because it's at home. I think that's not a game that Brent Key is dropping at home. Oklahoma State is going to beat Tulsa on the road. Arizona State and BYU will beat FCS opponents. I already picked Cincinnati to beat Boston College and Houston to beat Oregon State. And then I'm also going to take Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech, UCF, and Utah to beat FCS opponents. I picked Coastal Carolina to beat West Virginia on the road, and honestly, I am completely confident in that. I still think Coastal is going to walk into Morgantown and upset the Mountaineers. Then, Baylor at Auburn. Last year was a really good game. This year, not so much. I think Auburn's just going to win this one at home, probably pretty handily. Then in week 2, you've got UCF at Pittsburgh. I'm sticking with my previously made Pittsburgh pick. Baylor against Prairie View A&M is going to be a win for Baylor. Maybe a really strong FCS opponent. I'd give that game to Prairie View. I'd pick Baylor to lose, but I don't think in this scenario. Then you've got BYU at home against Arizona. I think is going to be a win for the Cougars. Cincinnati at home against Western Carolina. Colorado at home against Weber State. And Houston at home against Southern University. Kansas State at home against Washington State. And then the border war rivalry. One of the most heated rivalries in college football, believe it or not. This game was great last year. I mean, it was really epic. This is one of the oldest rivalries in college football. By the way, homecoming was invented for this rivalry. The game was in Columbia. But Kansas is not good this year, and Mizzou's probably pretty good this year. I'm going with MIZ. I'll let you finish it. I'll let you finish that one at home, Mizzou fans. Then Oregon at Oklahoma State. This would be a crazy way to get the college football world's attention. And I haven't picked a really crazy upset yet in this series. Oklahoma State's pretty good. They really are. Oregon, also, of course, really good under head coach Dan Lanning. This could be a really close game. And you know what? Maybe I exaggerated my excitement for Oklahoma State a little bit this year. I don't think they're fantastic. I don't think they're a playoff team. But they can make some chaos happen. I am picking the Oklahoma State Cowboys to beat the Oregon Ducks at home directly one season after going 1-11 and losing to Tulsa at home. Then, TCU beats Grambling, Utah beats Arkansas, West Virginia will beat an FCS opponent. I'm going to take in the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Iowa State this year, again, very volatile. They could be really good, they could be really bad. They probably may even have the highest ceiling and lowest floor of any team in the conference. But this seems like a game they get up for. I'm going with the Cyclones to win on the road, then Texas Tech over Oregon State. Let's go Arizona State on the road against Texas A&M. This feels like an upset waiting to happen, and I'm going with the Arizona State Sun Devils. Maybe I'm picking more upsets than I normally would because it's the Big 12. There's a lot of parity in the Big 12. I think that just speaks more to the conference than my picks. Virginia at home against West Virginia. Arizona at home against Northern Illinois. Baylor Cincinnati, Iowa State, Kansas State. I'm all taking it home in this week. I'm going to take ASU on the road against Kansas, and then I'm going to take Oklahoma State against Murray State. TCU, I picked beating Arkansas. Houston and Texas Tech is a great game, but the game is in Lubbock, so I think I'm giving it to the Red Raiders. Then Georgia State and UCF, I'm going to go, I already went with the Golden Knights. Utah, I picked beating Utah State. Colorado, and Northwestern. I think I'm definitely going to go with Coach Prime's Buffaloes here on the road. I already picked BYU to beat Colorado State. Then Colorado at Baylor. Baylor's got to beat somebody, but I'm not feeling it's going to be Colorado. And then, I think I'm going to have Cincinnati. No, I'm going to have Kansas State beat Cincinnati on the road. And then, let's go with Iowa State at home against Utah. Yeah, I'm picking the upset. Then Texas Tech beats Sam Houston. TCU against UCF. I think I'm going to go with the Golden Knights, honestly. That seems like an upset that they get. Then Oklahoma State at West Virginia is going to be Oklahoma State win. I already picked Arizona and Houston to win their games this week. Oh, wow, we're running along. I got to pick the pace up. Okay, Cincinnati at Arizona is going to go to Arizona. I'm going to take Arizona State against Baylor. Texas Tech will go on the road and beat... Texas Tech will beat Colorado on the road. Then Houston at home against UCF. Iowa State at home against West Virginia. TCU at home against BYU. Get a little upset going there. Arizona State at home against Hawaii. Let's go with BYU at home against Iowa State. Kansas State is going to lose to Houston at home. UCF at Oklahoma State is going to the Cowboys. Utah at home against Kansas. Let's go with West Virginia beating Arizona. Why not? It's a crazy conference. TCU at Baylor. I think I'm going to give to TCU. BYU, I picked being Notre Dame's one loss. I'm still pretty confident in that just because they're going to drop one, and that seems like the most likely game for them to drop. Then we've got Utah at Colorado. I think I'm going to go with Utah here. Then Oklahoma State at Houston. This one I think is going to go to Houston. I don't think Oklahoma State is completely invincible. Then Kansas and Kansas State in a bit of a rivalry matchup. I predict this one's going to be kind of anticlimactic. I'm going to take Kansas State by several points at home. Texas Tech at home against Arizona State. I think I'm going to give to the Red Raiders. They need to get some revenge because they dropped one to Arizona State last year. Then Cincinnati at West Virginia. Excuse me. I think I'm going to give to the Bearcats. I'm just feeling that one on the road. A lot of vibes picking going on in the Big 12 video just because you really can't predict this conference. Then Iowa State at Arizona, I'm going to give to the Wildcats. I'm going to give Arizona State a win at home against Kansas State. Let's go Texas Tech beat Cincinnati. And then I'm going to take Kansas at home against Baylor. I'm going to take Oklahoma State at home against Colorado. TCU at home against West Virginia. Let's go BYU on the road against UCF. And Utah at home against Houston, making them bowl eligible. Week 9. Arizona State and BYU, that one's probably going to go to the Sun Devils. I think they might just be that much better than BYU. I think they're getting it on the road. Utah's going to drop one to Cincinnati, because why not? Cincinnati at home. Kansas State at Colorado. The Buffs, I think, will win that, improve to 4-4. Then Iowa State and Oklahoma State. I'm going to give that game to Iowa State. Just a lot of parity going on, and Iowa State's at home here. Then TCU at home. I'm going to have them beat Kansas. Texas Tech against Arizona. I'm going to give to Texas Tech for an 8-0 start. Baylor at UCF is going to go to UCF. And now we're in Week 10. Arizona at home against TCU. Then Arizona State at home against Colorado. Let's do Baylor at home against Iowa State for a little bit of an upset. Then Cincinnati at Houston is going to go to the Cougars. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. I'm gonna pick Kansas State for an upset there. I think Oklahoma State's gonna level out a little bit towards the end of the season. Then Kansas and UCF, I'm gonna give to Kansas because the game's at home. West Virginia and Texas Tech's gonna go to Texas Tech. And BYU at Utah, the Holy War. This I don't think home field advantage has much to do with, and it just comes down to who's better. And on paper, BYU is a better team than Utah. I ranked BYU 3. I ranked Utah 6. But I think Utah on field, the odds of them being better than BYU are not very bad. I'm gonna go with Utah, just at home. I think they win the rivalry, and I picked the home team all Week 10 games. That's interesting. Then Utah will immediately turn around and beat Arizona. That's what they'll do. BYU will beat Baylor, meaning Baylor will not be going bowling. Let's have Colorado beat Houston, and then Iowa State at home against Cincinnati. Oklahoma State, another chance for some madness. Let's do it. Oklahoma State beats Texas Tech at home, improving to 7-3, handing the Red Raiders their first loss. Then TCU beats Kansas State at home. UCF at home against Arizona State. I don't think they dropped that one. And let's go Kansas on the road against West Virginia. Then in Week 12, we've got Arizona State's going to beat Oklahoma State at home. Let's have Texas Tech beat Baylor. Cincinnati, let's go with Colorado on the road against Cincinnati. And then Kansas State and Arizona, I'm probably going to go with K-State at home. Then BYU at Kansas, I'm going to take the Cougars. Utah at TCU is honestly a pretty balanced game, but I think I'm going with Utah on the road. Then Iowa State, UCF is Iowa State's going to drop that one. I'm feeling. I'm going to go Iowa State. UCF. Iowa State, I think is just going to they're going to win some really good games. They're going to lose some really bad games, and I think that's just how the season's set to go for them. Then Houston will beat West Virginia, who it looks like is certainly gotten the short end of the stick here with the games that they're playing. Then finally in Week 13, we'll have Arizona State beat Arizona for an 11-1 finish. Arizona will finish 6-6. Cincinnati is not going to beat BYU. BYU finishes 9-3. Cincinnati 5-7. Colorado at home against UCF for a 7-5 finish for Coach Prime and the Buffs. 5-7 for UCF. Houston at home against Baylor. 9-3 for Houston. 3-9 for Baylor. And Farmageddon rivalry, Kansas State and Iowa State. One of my favorite rivalries, actually. I'm going to go with the Wildcats. I'm going to say Kansas State wins, and that means an 8-4 finish for them. 7-5 for Iowa State, which is probably a lot better than most people are expecting. Oklahoma State beats Kansas, which means they kind of even out for an 8-4 finish. And Kansas will be 5-7 for the third straight year. That might end up getting Lance Leopold fired. Then Texas Tech at home, I'm going to have beating TCU, and which is an 11-1 finish for Texas Tech, 8-4 for TCU. And finally, Utah will beat West Virginia, finishing 10-2. West Virginia's 2-10, unfortunately. So the conference championship is Texas Tech and Arizona State. Texas Tech is probably the better team on paper. However, Arizona State lost the game in the regular season, and it is very difficult to beat a good team twice. I've brought that up several times in my conference championship picks. These are two great teams. Like Texas Tech, even without Brendan Sorsby, is still one of the best teams in the country. Arizona State, on the other hand, really doesn't have any big flaws. And all said and done, I think it just comes down to who is more set to win this game. And I'm feeling like that's Arizona State for a 12-1 finish and a conference championship, guaranteeing them a spot in the playoffs. I think Texas Tech will likely also get an auto bid, maybe even Utah. We'll see. Next week is the Big Ten. Then week after that, we'll have the SEC and the playoff predictions where we get to see my picks. And that's going to do it for this one. We will see you next week.